Do not bear false witness. The sacred architecture of truth. Can a single word change the world? In a sea of digital noise, where does truth reside? And are we brave enough to embody it? This is a journey unlike any you've taken. You're about to experience a uniquely groundbreaking story, a deep dive into the sacred architecture of truth, never told quite like this before. Discover how ancient wisdom confronts our modern crisis and how we can rise to be beacons of light. This is more than a story. It's a call to transformation. Stay tuned until the end for a message that will ignite your soul. Like, comment, subscribe, and share this unique experience to join a community dedicated to living truth and grace. We're committed to bringing you more groundbreaking, heartwarming stories. This is just the beginning. The weight of words. Listen closely. That sound, the sharp crack of the gavel, echoes not merely through a courtroom, but through the very fabric of creation. It is the sound of a sacred covenant, a divine architecture laid bare before us. The ancient scrolls of Exodus 20:16, where the commandment rings out, "You shall not bear false witness." This is not a quaint admonition, a mere social nicety, but a foundational stone upon which the very temple of humanity rests. Consider the power of words. They are not ephemeral whispers carried on the wind, but living seeds capable of blossoming into worlds of beauty or withering into landscapes of desolation. In the beginning God spoke, and creation sprang forth. Let there be light, and light was. Our words, then, are echoes of that divine act, carrying within them the potential for both creation and destruction. The 9th commandment, far from being a simple prohibition against gossip, unveils a profound theological truth. God is truth. To speak falsely is not merely to misrepresent reality, it is to assault the very nature of God, to introduce chaos into the ordered cosmos He has established. When we bear false witness, we do not simply deceive our neighbor, we desecrate the divine image within them. Look around us. The headlines scream of fake news and deep fakes, modern manifestations of an ancient malady. Social media, a digital agora meant to connect, instead becomes a labyrinth of conspiracy and deceit. Algorithms designed to serve amplify the cacophony of lies, drowning out the still, small voice of truth. This is not merely a crisis of information, it is a spiritual crisis. When truth is relative, when facts are malleable, we lose our common ground, the shared reality that binds us as a community. We become islands, adrift in a sea of subjectivity, vulnerable to the currents of manipulation and despair. The commandment, then, is a call to radical honesty, a summons to align our words with the divine logos, the Word made flesh. It is a call to recognize that every word we utter carries weight, a moral gravity that affects not only ourselves, but the entire human family. In a world drowning in lies, what does truth cost? It demands sacrifice, a willingness to stand against the tide of popular opinion, to speak with integrity, even when it is inconvenient or dangerous. It requires a profound humility, a recognition that our own understanding is limited, that we must seek truth beyond ourselves, in the divine source of all being. This commandment is not a burden, but a liberation. It frees us from the tyranny of falsehood, from the enslavement of deception. It invites us to participate in the divine act of creation, to speak words that build up, that heal, that reveal the beauty and goodness of God's design. For in the sacred architecture of truth, every word is a stone, every utterance a beam. Let us then build with integrity, with reverence, with love, so that our words may reflect the light of the one who is truth itself. Let us remember, the truth, though sometimes painful, is the only foundation upon which we can truly stand, and the only path that leads to the divine embrace. Israel's justice system. Imagine the dusty plains of ancient Israel, where the fate of individuals and families hung in the balance, determined by the words spoken before the elders. Here, in the heart of the covenant, truth was not a mere abstraction, a philosophical ideal, but the very bedrock of existence. In Israel, truth was sacred, because justice, the very manifestation of God's righteousness, depended upon it. The command, "You shall not bear false witness," was not a gentle suggestion. It was a stark, uncompromising imperative. Bearing false witness was not merely a sin, it was a capital crime. Deuteronomy 19:18-19. This severity might seem harsh to our modern ears, accustomed as we are to the relativization of truth. But the ancient Israelites understood something profound. Lies unravel the social contract, the delicate web of trust that binds a community together. Consider the gravity of a false accusation. A single poisoned word could strip a man of his land, his livelihood, his very life. The story of Naboth, 1 Kings 21:13, stands as a chilling testament to this reality. False witnesses, manipulated by the wicked Jezebel, condemned an innocent man to death, shattering the foundations of justice and leaving a stain upon the land. This was not simply a matter of human law, it was a matter of divine order. God, the source of all truth, had established a covenant with Israel, a relationship built on fidelity and integrity. To lie was to break that covenant, to betray the very nature of God Himself. The book of Proverbs, that treasury of ancient wisdom, echoes this truth. A false witness will perish, but a faithful speaker endures. Proverbs 21:28. This is not merely a practical observation, a pragmatic warning about the consequences of deception. It is a profound theological insight. The false witness, in rejecting truth, rejects God, the source of all being. And in that rejection, he sets himself on a path of self-destruction, a path that leads to spiritual and existential ruin. The faithful speaker, on the other hand, aligns himself with the divine Logos, the Word of God that sustains all things. He speaks truth not for personal gain or fleeting advantage, but out of reverence for the one who is truth itself. And in that alignment, he finds enduring strength, a foundation that cannot be shaken by the winds of falsehood. Look at a modern courtroom where jurors deliberate, where lives and reputations hang in the balance. Though the forms and rituals may have changed, the fundamental principle remains. Justice depends on truth. The echoes of the ancient commandment resonate through the halls of our legal systems, reminding us that the pursuit of justice is inseparable from the pursuit of truth. Yet we must ask ourselves, in a world awash with misinformation and manipulation, where truth is often sacrificed on the altar of expediency, are we truly upholding this sacred principle? Are we building our societies on the solid foundation of truth, or are we constructing them on the shifting sands of falsehood? The ancient Israelites understood that truth was not merely a matter of intellectual assent, it was a matter of moral commitment, a covenantal obligation. It required courage, integrity, and a willingness to stand against the tide of falsehood, even when it was difficult or unpopular. This is the challenge that faces us today, to reclaim the sacredness of truth, to recognize its divine origin, and to build our lives and our communities on its enduring foundation. For in the sacred architecture of truth, justice, and peace find their true dwelling place, and the covenant between God and humanity is made manifest. Christ, truth incarnate, the narrative shifts. The landscape of truth transforms as we encounter the figure of Jesus Christ. He stands before Pilate, a solitary figure against the might of the Roman Empire, and declares, "I am the truth," John 14:6. This is not a mere philosophical assertion. It is a seismic revelation, a divine unveiling. The ninth commandment, once a legal and societal imperative, now becomes a profound statement of divine identity. In Jesus, truth is not merely a concept, an abstract ideal to be debated and defined. It is a person, a living, breathing embodiment of God's very nature. He is the Logos, the Word made flesh, the divine utterance that sustains all creation. To encounter Jesus is to encounter truth itself, to stand face to face with the source of all reality. Consider the scene before Pilate. Jesus, accused and condemned by false witnesses, stands in silent dignity. He does not engage in rhetorical battles or political maneuvers. He simply bears witness to the truth, even as it leads him to the cross. This is not a passive acceptance of injustice, but a radical act of love, a willingness to suffer for the sake of truth. Then we see Jesus confronting the hypocrisy of the scribes and Pharisees in the story of the woman caught in adultery, John 8:1-11. They, the self-proclaimed guardians of the law, seek to use truth as a weapon to condemn and destroy. But Jesus, in his infinite mercy, reveals the deeper truth, that truth without love is brutality. He challenges them. Let him who is without sin among you be the first to throw a stone. And in that moment, the stones fall, the accusers are silenced, and the woman is offered a new beginning. This is not a relativizing of truth, a dismissal of moral responsibility. It is a revelation of the transformative power of mercy, a demonstration that truth, when tempered by love, can heal and restore. Yet Jesus also insists on honesty. Go, and from now on, sin no more. He demands integrity, a commitment to live in accordance with the truth. Let your yes be yes, and your no be no, Matthew 5:37. He understands that love without truth is betrayal, a sentimental facade that masks deeper forms of manipulation and deceit. In our own time, we see the echoes of these encounters. The protester holding a Black Lives Matter sign, demanding justice and truth in the face of systemic oppression, embodies the spirit of Jesus' challenge to power. The struggle for racial justice, like the encounter with the adulteress, forces us to confront the uncomfortable truths about our society, the ways in which we have failed to live up to our ideals. But without love, without a genuine desire for reconciliation and healing, our pursuit of truth can become a weapon, a tool for division and condemnation. We must remember that truth in its fullness is always intertwined with love, with a profound respect for the dignity of every human person. Jesus, in his life and ministry, reveals the sacred architecture of truth, a structure built on the foundation of divine love and mercy. He shows us that truth is not merely a set of propositions or a collection of facts, but a living reality, a dynamic force that transforms hearts and renews communities. He invites us to participate in this divine architecture, to speak truth with courage and compassion, to build our lives and our societies on the solid foundation of his love. He calls us to be witnesses to the truth, to bear witness to the power of his grace to heal and restore. For in the end, the truth is not a burden, but a liberation. It invites us to walk in the light of God's love, to live in accordance with the divine Logos, the Word who is truth itself. And in that light, we find our true home, our true identity, our true purpose. Augustine lies as spiritual suicide. We now turn to the profound insights of Augustine, a man who, in his own journey from darkness to light, wrestled with the insidious nature of falsehood. His words, etched in the pages of his Confessions, resonate with a timeless urgency, a stark warning against the self-destructive power of lies. Augustine called lying a deeper murder, a soul-killing act that poisons both the liar and the victim. Consider the depth of this assertion. Physical murder extinguishes life, but the act of lying extinguishes something far more profound, the soul's capacity for truth, its very connection to the divine. Augustine understood that humanity, created in the Imago Dei, the image of God, is inherently oriented towards truth. God, the source of all being, desires truth in the inward being. Psalm 51:6. To lie, then, is not merely to misrepresent reality. It is to reject our divine likeness, to sever the very thread that connects us to our Creator. Imagine the soul as a mirror, reflecting the light of God's truth. When we lie, we distort that mirror, creating a fractured image, a grotesque caricature of our true selves. We become trapped in a labyrinth of our own making, lost in a world of shadows and illusions. Augustine's understanding of lying extends beyond mere verbal deception. He saw it as a spiritual malady, a corruption of the will, a deliberate choice to embrace darkness over light. Each lie, no matter how small or seemingly insignificant, chips away at our integrity, eroding our capacity for truth and goodness. It is a slow, insidious form of self-destruction, a gradual descent into spiritual decay. Look at the world around us. A montage of political lies, forged artworks, and plagiarized research paints a grim picture of our contemporary reality. We live in an age of information overload, where falsehoods spread like wildfire, fueled by the anonymity of the internet and the seductive power of propaganda. The lines between truth and fiction blur, and the very concept of objective reality is called into question. But Augustine's warning is not merely a lament for a lost age of innocence. It is a call to radical honesty, a summons to reclaim our spiritual integrity. He reminds us that the battle against falsehood is not merely an external struggle, a fight against the lies of others. It is an internal battle, a constant struggle against the temptations of deception that reside within our own hearts. The lies to embrace a form of spiritual suicide. We inflict wounds upon our own souls, creating a chasm between our inner selves and the divine truth that seeks to illuminate us. We become alienated from God, from ourselves, and from our fellow human beings. Augustine understood that truth is not merely a matter of intellectual assent. It is a matter of moral commitment, a choice to align our wills with the divine will. He recognized that the human heart is prone to self-deception, that we often rationalize our lies, justifying them as necessary or harmless. But the truth, Augustine reminds us, is not relative. It is absolute, grounded in the very nature of God. And to reject that truth is to reject the source of our being, to plunge ourselves into a darkness that can consume us. This is not a message of despair, but a call to hope. Augustine himself, a former master of rhetoric and deception, found redemption in the embrace of divine truth. His Confessions is a testament to the transformative power of honesty, a journey from the shadows of falsehood to the light of grace. He invites us to embark on the similar journey, to confront the lies that reside within us, to seek forgiveness for our transgressions, and to embrace the liberating power of truth. He reminds us that the path to spiritual healing begins with a radical commitment to honesty, a willingness to speak the truth, even when it is difficult or painful. For in the end, the sacred architecture of truth is not merely a structure built of words and propositions. It is a dwelling place for the soul, a sanctuary where we can find refuge from the storms of falsehood. And in that sanctuary, we can rediscover our true selves, our divine likeness, and our eternal connection to the one who is truth itself. Aquinas, speech as divine gift. We now turn to the luminous intellect of Thomas Aquinas, a man whose theological and philosophical insights continue to illuminate the path toward understanding the sacred nature of truth. For Aquinas, speech is not merely a practical tool for communication. It is a profound divine gift, a reflection of God's own creative word. He understood that the very purpose of speech is to manifest the truth. Imagine the medieval scriptorium, where monks painstakingly transcribed sacred texts, illuminating the Word of God with ink and parchment. Here, words were not mere instruments of information, but vessels of divine revelation, carriers of eternal truth. Aquinas recognized that our capacity for speech, our ability to articulate thoughts and ideas, is a reflection of God's own creative act, a participation in the divine Logos. When we speak, we engage in an act of creation, shaping reality with our words. We have the power to build up or tear down, to heal or to wound, to illuminate or to obscure. This is the profound responsibility that accompanies the gift of speech. Aquinas understood that lies corrupt this divine gift, transforming words from instruments of truth into weapons of deception. When we lie, we betray the very purpose of speech, distorting the divine image within us and within those who hear our words. We become agents of chaos, introducing disorder into the ordered cosmos that God has created. Consider the journalist typing furiously, seeking to uncover the truth and expose injustice. Or consider the child learning to speak, discovering the power of words to express their thoughts and feelings. These are examples of speech used in its proper context, as a means of manifesting the truth and building up the human community. But what happens when words are used to manipulate, to deceive, to sow discord? What happens when truth is sacrificed on the altar of expediency, when emotion overrules fact, when propaganda triumphs over reason? We find ourselves in what modernity has termed the post-truth era, a landscape where objective reality is often dismissed as a matter of opinion, where feelings are elevated above facts. This, Aquinas would argue, is not merely a social or political problem. It is a profound theological crisis, a rebellion against the Logos, the Word who orders creation. To reject truth is to reject the very foundation of reality, to deny the divine order that sustains all things. It is to embrace a world of shadows and illusions, a world where anything can be true and nothing can be true. Aquinas recognized that the human intellect, though fallen, retains a capacity for truth. He understood that we are drawn to truth by our very nature, that we yearn for a reality that is stable and reliable. But he also understood that our wills are weak, prone to self-deception and manipulation. This is why the gift of speech requires constant vigilance, a commitment to integrity and honesty. We must strive to use our words not for personal gain or fleeting advantage, but for the glory of God and the good of our fellow human beings. Aquinas' insights remind us that speech is not merely a matter of communication, it is a matter of communion, a means of building relationships and fostering understanding. When we speak truthfully, we create a space for genuine encounter, a space where we can share our thoughts and experiences with honesty and respect. But when we lie, we break that communion, creating a barrier of distrust and alienation. We become islands, isolated from one another, adrift in a sea of falsehood. The challenge that faces us today is to reclaim the sacredness of speech, to recognize its divine origin, and to use it for its intended purpose, to manifest the truth. This requires a profound humility, a willingness to acknowledge our own limitations, and a commitment to seek truth beyond ourselves, in the divine Logos who illuminates all things. It requires courage, integrity, and a willingness to stand against the tide of falsehood, even when it is difficult or unpopular. And it requires love, a genuine desire to build up and not tear down, to heal and not to wound. For in the end, the sacred architecture of truth is built on the foundation of the divine Logos, the Word who is truth itself. And our speech, our words, are the tools with which we participate in that divine architecture, shaping the world around us with our voices, our thoughts, and our hearts. Digital deception. We now find ourselves adrift in a digital wilderness, a vast and often treacherous landscape where truth is not merely challenged, but actively assaulted. The tools of our technological advancement, intended to connect and inform, have become instruments of deception, weaving a web of falsehood that threatens to ensnare us all. Consider the insidious rise of deepfake videos, where the faces and voices of world leaders are manipulated, creating convincing illusions that sow confusion and distrust. These digital mirages, once the stuff of science fiction, now permeate our reality, blurring the lines between what is real and what is fabricated. And then there are the bots, the tireless agents of disinformation, programmed to inflame social media, spreading lies and conspiracy theories with relentless efficiency. These digital phantoms, devoid of human conscience, amplify the cacophony of falsehood, drowning out the voices of reason and truth. Even our most cherished relationships are not immune to this digital contagion. A grandmother with the best of intentions shares a conspiracy theory, a digital echo chamber whispering in her ear. She, like so many, is caught in the undertow of misinformation, a victim of the very tools designed to connect us. A sobering study from MIT in 2018 revealed a chilling reality. AI-generated lies spread 6 times faster than truth. This is not merely a matter of speed, it is a matter of spiritual velocity, a rapid descent into a world where falsehood reigns supreme. The algorithms, the invisible architects of our digital landscape, profit from outrage, from the dopamine rush of sensationalism and conflict. They feed on our primal instincts, exploiting our fears and prejudices, eroding our shared reality, and fracturing our community. In this digital desert, the 9th commandment becomes a vital lifeline, a spiritual firewall against the encroaching darkness. You shall not tweet false witness, a modern adaptation of an ancient imperative, a call to discernment in the face of digital deception. This is not a call to retreat from the digital world, to abandon the tools of our age. It is a call to reclaim our humanity, to exercise our God-given capacity for reason and discernment. We are called to be vigilant guardians of truth, to sift through the mountains of information, to distinguish the genuine from the counterfeit. This demands a profound humility, a recognition that our own biases and prejudices can cloud our judgment. We must be willing to question our assumptions, to seek out diverse perspectives, to engage in respectful dialogue with those who hold different views. It requires courage, a willingness to stand against the tide of popular opinion, to speak truth to power, even when it is inconvenient or unpopular. And it requires love, a genuine desire to build bridges of understanding, to heal the wounds of division, to restore the fabric of our communities. The digital age has presented us with unprecedented challenges, but it has also presented us with unprecedented opportunities. We have the power to use these tools for good, to amplify the voices of truth, to build communities of understanding and compassion. But we must remember that technology is not neutral. It is a tool, and like any tool, it can be used for good or for evil. The choice is ours. We can choose to be passive consumers of digital content, easily swayed by the winds of propaganda, or we can choose to be active participants in the pursuit of truth. We can choose to build a digital world that reflects the sacred architecture of truth. A world where honesty and integrity prevail, where the dignity of every human person is respected, and where the light of God's love illuminates the darkness of deception. Let us, then, be mindful of the words we share, the images we propagate, the narratives we perpetuate. Let us be guardians of truth in the digital age, mindful that our digital footprints hold the power to build or to destroy. And in doing so, let us bring the ancient wisdom of the ninth commandment into the modern age, allowing it to guide us through the digital desert and toward the oasis of truth. Justice undermined. We must remember that the commandment, "You shall not bear false witness," is not merely a theological abstraction, a philosophical musing. It has real-world consequences, devastating impacts on the lives of individuals and the integrity of our societies. To ignore its gravity is to ignore the cries of the innocent, the tears of the wronged, the very fabric of justice itself unraveling before our eyes. Consider the stark and sobering statistic. Since 1989, over 3,200 individuals in the United States have been exonerated from wrongful convictions. These are not mere numbers on a page. They are human beings, flesh and blood, whose lives have been stolen, whose families have been shattered, whose trust in the system has been irrevocably broken. And what is the common thread that runs through these tragic stories? False testimony, perjury, the deliberate manipulation of truth for personal gain or malicious intent. The very foundation of justice, the bedrock upon which our legal systems are built, is undermined by the poisonous seeds of falsehood. Imagine the scene. An exonerated inmate, after years of wrongful imprisonment, finally embracing their loved ones, their tears mingling with the tears of those who never gave up hope. These are moments of both profound joy and profound sorrow, a stark reminder of the immeasurable cost of injustice. But for every exonerated individual, how many others remain trapped in the labyrinth of wrongful conviction, their voices silenced, their pleas ignored? How many lives are shattered? How many families are destroyed? How many communities are left wounded by the corrosive power of lies? The prophets of old, those fiery voices of divine justice, would rage against such corruption. Do not spread false reports. Do not help the guilty by being malicious witnesses. Exodus 23:1-2. Their words echo across the centuries, a timeless indictment of those who would pervert justice for their own selfish purposes. They understood that truth is not a commodity to be bartered or manipulated. It is the very foundation of justice, the cornerstone of a society built on righteousness. Without it, the innocent bleed, the vulnerable are exploited, and the very fabric of our communities begins to fray. Look at the protesters demanding accountability, their voices rising in righteous indignation against the systemic injustices that plague our societies. They are not merely seeking political change, they are seeking a restoration of truth, a return to the sacred principles that underpin our legal systems. And then there is the judge, forced to dismiss a case due to tampered evidence, a heartbreaking recognition of the fragility of justice in the face of corruption. This is not a victory for anyone. It is a tragic reminder of the devastating consequences of falsehood. We must remember that justice is not merely a matter of legal procedure. It is a matter of moral imperative, a reflection of God's own righteousness. It demands integrity, honesty, and a commitment to truth that transcends personal gain or political expediency. When we allow falsehood to flourish, when we turn a blind eye to injustice, we betray the very principles upon which our societies are founded. We become complicit in the suffering of the innocent, the erosion of trust, the disintegration of our moral fabric. The challenge that faces us today is to reclaim the sacredness of truth, to recognize its vital role in the pursuit of justice, and to stand against the forces of deception that seek to undermine it. This requires a profound commitment to integrity, a willingness to speak truth to power, and a dedication to the pursuit of justice for all. It requires a recognition that our words have power, that our actions have consequences, and that our choices can have a profound impact on the lives of others. And it requires a deep and abiding love for our fellow human beings, a recognition of their inherent dignity and worth, and a commitment to protecting their rights and freedoms. For in the end, the sacred architecture of truth is not merely a theoretical construct. It is the very foundation of a just and compassionate society, and our commitment to truth, our refusal to bear false witness, is the cornerstone upon which that society is built. Let us then build with integrity, with courage, and with love, so that justice may prevail and the innocent may find their voice. Truth Commissions, Biblical Models. We now turn to the profound concept of restorative truth, a vision of truth-telling that transcends mere punitive justice and embraces the transformative power of healing. Biblical truth-telling, as we see in the encounters of the prophets, is not primarily about shaming or condemning, but about redeeming, restoring, and reconciling. Consider the powerful confrontation between Nathan and David. 2 Samuel 12:7. Nathan the prophet stands before the king, not to humiliate or destroy him, but to awaken his conscience, to invite him into a space of repentance and restoration. He speaks truth with courage and compassion, knowing that true healing can only begin with an honest acknowledgement of wrongdoing. This is the essence of restorative truth. It seeks not merely to punish the offender, but to heal the wounds of the victim and restore the broken relationships within the community. Modern truth commissions, like the South African Truth and Reconciliation Commission, embody this principle, creating spaces for victims to share their stories, for perpetrators to acknowledge their crimes, and for communities to begin the long and arduous journey of healing. Imagine the scenes from those hearings. Victims, their voices trembling with pain and grief, recounting the atrocities they endured. Perpetrators, their faces etched with remorse, confessing their sins and seeking forgiveness. These are not mere spectacles of public confession. They are sacred moments of truth-telling, where the wounds of the past are laid bare, not to perpetuate hatred, but to pave the way for healing and reconciliation. Consider also the indigenous leaders documenting the atrocities of residential schools, their voices rising in a chorus of pain and resilience. They are not merely seeking historical accuracy. They are seeking a restoration of dignity, a reclamation of their stolen heritage, a path toward healing for generations to come. And then there are the community circles for conflict resolution, where individuals from opposing sides come together, not to argue or condemn, but to listen, to understand, and to find common ground. These are spaces of radical empathy, where the walls of division are broken down and the seeds of reconciliation are sown. As Desmond Tutu, a champion of restorative justice, so eloquently stated, "Without truth, there is no healing." This is not merely a pragmatic observation, it is a profound spiritual insight. True healing can only begin with an honest acknowledgement of the past, a willingness to confront the painful truths that have divided us. But restorative truth is not merely about recounting past wrongs. It is about creating a future where such wrongs are no longer possible. It is about building communities where justice and compassion prevail, where the dignity of every human person is respected, and where the wounds of the past are transformed into sources of strength and resilience. This requires a profound commitment to empathy, a willingness to walk in the shoes of those who have suffered, to listen to their stories, and to acknowledge their pain. It requires a commitment to forgiveness, not as a dismissal of wrongdoing, but as a release from the shackles of resentment and bitterness. It requires a commitment to justice, not as a punitive measure, but as a restorative force, seeking to repair the broken relationships within our communities. And it requires a commitment to hope, a belief that even the deepest wounds can be healed, that even the most broken relationships can be restored. The biblical vision of restorative truth invites us to participate in the divine work of healing, to become agents of reconciliation in a world torn apart by division and conflict. It calls us to build communities where truth and justice prevail, where the wounds of the past are transformed into sources of strength and resilience, and where the light of God's love illuminates the path toward a future of peace and reconciliation. Let us then embrace the transformative power of restorative truth, allowing it to guide us on the path toward healing and reconciliation, so that we may build a world where the sacred architecture of truth stands as a testament to the enduring power of love and forgiveness. The Church as witness. The Church, the mystical body of Christ, the very bearer of the gospel, is called to be a witness to truth in a world shrouded in shadows. This is not a mere suggestion, an optional addendum to our mission. It is a fundamental imperative, a sacred obligation that demands unwavering commitment. The Church must model truth-telling even when it pierces the heart, even when it reveals the darkest corners of our own failings. Consider the agonizing spectacle of a priest confessing institutional abuse, his voice trembling with remorse, his words bearing the weight of shattered lives and broken trust. This is not a moment of self-destruction, but a moment of profound honesty, a necessary step on the path toward healing and restoration, The church, in its humanity, has fallen short, has betrayed the trust of the vulnerable, and must now confront the painful truth of its sins. And then there are the parishioners, those faithful souls who, with courage and conviction, advocate for transparency, demanding accountability, refusing to allow the darkness to remain hidden. They are not seeking to tear down the church, but to purify it, to restore its integrity, to ensure that the light of truth shines brightly in every corner of its dwelling. Recall the prophetic voice of St. Oscar Romero, his radio broadcasts echoing across the airwaves of El Salvador, speaking truth to power, denouncing injustice, and defending the voiceless. His martyrdom, a brutal act of violence, stands as a stark testament to the cost of truth, a reminder that the Church's witness can demand the ultimate sacrifice. Vatican II, in its profound document Gaudium et Spes, reminds us that the Church must demonstrate respect for truth. SS 59. This is not merely a matter of intellectual assent, but a matter of moral integrity, a commitment to align our words and actions with the divine Logos, the Word who is truth itself, the silence that once shrouded the horrors of abuse, the complicity that allowed the darkness to fester, is no longer acceptable. The expose by the Boston Globe, a painful but necessary act of truth-telling, shattered the illusion of impunity, revealing the depths of the Church's failure to protect the vulnerable. Silence, we must understand, is not neutrality, it is complicity. To remain silent in the face of injustice is to betray the very essence of our calling, to abandon the victims, to perpetuate the cycle of abuse. Truth, we must recognize, is the first act of love. This is not a message of condemnation, but a call to conversion, a summons to embrace the transformative power of honesty. The Church, in its humanity, has stumbled, has fallen, but it is also capable of profound grace, of radical repentance, of genuine healing. We are called to be a community of truth, a beacon of light in a world shrouded in deception. We are called to embody the words of Christ. Let your yes be yes, and your no be no. Matthew 5:37. To live with integrity, to speak with courage, to act with compassion. This demands a profound humility, a recognition that we are all sinners, that we are all in need of God's mercy. It demands a willingness to confront our own failings, to acknowledge our own complicity in the perpetuation of injustice. It demands courage, a willingness to speak truth to power, to challenge the status quo, to stand with the marginalized and the oppressed. And it demands love, a genuine desire to heal the wounds of the past, to restore broken relationships, to build a future where justice and compassion prevail. The Church, in its role as witness, is called to be a sacrament of truth, a visible sign of God's love and mercy in the world. We are called to be a community where honesty and integrity are valued, where the voices of the marginalized are heard, and where the light of Christ shines brightly, illuminating the path toward healing and reconciliation. Let us then embrace this sacred calling, this profound responsibility to be witnesses to truth in a world that desperately needs our light. Let us allow the purifying fire of truth to cleanse our hearts and our communities so that we may become a beacon of hope, a testament to the transformative power of God's love. Virtuous speech. We now arrive at the practical application of truth, the cultivation of a culture of honesty that begins in the small, seemingly insignificant moments of our daily lives. For it is in these moments, in the quiet corners of our interactions, that the seeds of truth or falsehood are sown, shaping the landscape of our relationships and the integrity of our communities. Truth, we must understand, is not merely a grand abstract ideal. It is a lived reality, a practice of virtue that demands constant vigilance and intentionality. It begins with the simple act of refusing to participate in gossip, resisting the temptation to spread rumors or engage in idle speculation. It begins with the commitment to correct misinformation, to challenge falsehoods, even when they are popular or convenient. Consider the family gathered around the table, navigating a conflict, their voices rising and falling, their emotions raw. Here, truth is not a weapon to be wielded, but a balm to be applied, a gentle force that guides them toward understanding and reconciliation. It is the willingness to listen before speaking, to seek to understand the other person's perspective, to acknowledge our own biases and limitations. Then there is the journalist, hunched over a computer, meticulously fact-checking every detail, verifying every source, refusing to compromise on accuracy. This is not merely a professional obligation, it is a moral imperative, a commitment to serve the public good, to provide a foundation of truth upon which informed decisions can be made. And then there is the therapist, guiding a couple through a difficult conversation, creating a safe space for honest dialogue, encouraging them to speak their truths with vulnerability and respect. This is not merely a therapeutic technique, it is an act of spiritual guidance, a facilitation of healing and restoration. Augustine, that master of rhetoric turned apostle of truth, urged us, "Let your speech be seasoned with salt." Colossians 4:6. This is not merely a call to eloquence or wit. It is a summons to speak with integrity, to preserve the purity of our words, to use them as instruments of healing and restoration. Salt, in the ancient world, was a symbol of preservation, a substance that prevented decay and corruption. Augustine understood that our words, like salt, have the power to preserve the integrity of our relationships, to heal the wounds of division, to prevent the spread of falsehood and malice. This requires a profound humility, a recognition that our own understanding is limited, that we are all prone to error and misjudgment. It requires a willingness to admit our mistakes, to apologize for our transgressions, to seek forgiveness for our failings. It requires courage, a willingness to speak truth, even when it is difficult or unpopular, to challenge the status quo, to stand against the tide of falsehood. And it requires love, a genuine desire to build up and not tear down, to heal and not to wound, to create a culture of honesty and integrity. The cultivation of virtuous speech is not merely a matter of etiquette or social convention. It is a matter of spiritual discipline, a practice of holiness that aligns our words with the divine Logos, the Word who is truth itself. It is a participation in the divine act of creation, a shaping of reality with our voices, our thoughts, and our hearts. We are called to be artisans of truth, crafting our words with care and intention, building bridges of understanding, healing the wounds of division, and illuminating the path toward reconciliation. We are called to be witnesses to the transformative power of honesty, to demonstrate that truth is not merely a concept, but a lived reality, a force that can heal and restore. Let us, then, embrace the practice of virtuous speech, allowing it to permeate every aspect of our lives, from our intimate conversations to our public discourse. Let us season our words with the salt of integrity, so that they may become instruments of healing, vessels of truth, and beacons of hope in a world that desperately needs their light. Prophetic courage. The ninth commandment, in its most profound application, calls us to a radical form of honesty, a dangerous honesty that demands courage and sacrifice. This is not a comfortable virtue, a mere adherence to social niceties. It is a prophetic calling, a summons to stand against the forces of falsehood, even when it means risking everything. Consider the whistleblowers, those courageous individuals who step forward to expose corruption and wrongdoing, their voices trembling with fear and conviction as they testify before Congress. They know that their words may have devastating consequences, that they may face retaliation, ostracism, even physical harm. But they also know that silence is not an option, that the truth must be told no matter the cost. Then there are the climate scientists, their faces etched with concern, their voices filled with urgency as they present data that reveals the devastating impact of human activity on the planet. They are not merely presenting scientific facts. They are bearing witness to the truth, challenging the comfortable illusions that allow us to ignore the impending crisis. And then there is the teen, standing alone against the tide of cyberbullying, their voice rising in defiance against the anonymous cruelty of the digital mob. They are not merely defending themselves, they are reclaiming their dignity, refusing to be silenced, demonstrating that even the youngest among us can embody the courage of the prophets. Like Elijah confronting Ahab, 1 Kings 18:18. These truth-tellers stand as solitary figures against the forces of power and deception. They know that their words may be met with hostility, that they may be labeled as troublemakers or radicals, but they also know that their silence would be a betrayal of their conscience, a denial of their God-given responsibility to speak truth. Dietrich Bonhoeffer, that courageous theologian who stood against the tyranny of Nazi Germany, understood this profound truth. Silence in the face of evil is itself evil, he wrote. Not to speak is to speak, not to act is to act. His words resonate with a timeless urgency, reminding us that neutrality is not an option in the face of injustice. This is the essence of prophetic courage. It is not merely about speaking the truth, it is about living the truth, embodying it in our actions, our choices, our very being. It is about recognizing that our voices have power, that our actions have consequences, and that our choices can make a difference in the world. This requires a profound commitment to integrity, a refusal to compromise our principles, even when it is difficult or inconvenient. It requires a willingness to stand alone, to be a voice crying out in the wilderness, to challenge the comfortable illusions that allow us to ignore the suffering of others. It requires a deep and abiding love for truth, a recognition that it is not merely a matter of intellectual assent, but a matter of moral imperative, a reflection of God's own nature. And it requires a profound trust in God, a belief that even in the darkest of times, the light of truth will ultimately prevail. The ninth commandment, in its call to prophetic courage, invites us to participate in the divine work of justice, to become agents of change in a world that desperately needs our witness. It calls us to be beacons of hope, to illuminate the path toward a future where truth and justice prevail, where the voices of the marginalized are heard, and where the dignity of every human person is respected. Let us, then, embrace this sacred calling, this profound responsibility to speak truth with courage and conviction, to stand against the forces of falsehood, and to be witnesses to the transformative power of honesty. Let us remember that even the smallest act of courage can have a ripple effect, that even the quietest voice can make a difference, and that even in the darkest of times, the light of truth will ultimately shine through. The Word made flesh, we arrive at the heart of the matter, the very core of our understanding of truth. For truth is not merely a philosophical abstraction, a collection of propositions or a set of data points. It is a person, a living embodiment of divine reality, Jesus Christ, the Logos, the Word made flesh, He who is full of grace and truth. John 1:14, entered our world not to condemn us, but to redeem us, to liberate us from the shackles of falsehood that bind us. He died for the lies we have lived, the deceptions we have embraced, the illusions we have clung to. In Him, truth and mercy, those seemingly disparate realities, meet and embrace. They kiss, forming a union that transforms our understanding of both. For truth without mercy becomes a weapon of condemnation, a tool of destruction, and mercy without truth becomes a sentimental facade, a hollow gesture that masks deeper forms of manipulation and deceit. Christ, in His life, death, and resurrection, reveals the radical love of God, a love that transcends our failures, our transgressions, our betrayals. He invites us to participate in this love, to become witnesses to its transformative power, to build communities where the truth will set you free. John 8:32. Imagine the diverse crowd, a mosaic of humanity. Judges, teachers, parents, activists, raising their hands in a courtroom oath. They are not merely swearing to uphold the law. They are pledging their allegiance to truth, recognizing its sacredness, acknowledging its power to heal and restore. They are embodying the call to be witnesses, to bear testimony to the reality of Christ's love, to build a world where truth and justice prevail. They are recognizing that their voices, their actions, their very lives can become instruments of divine grace, agents of transformation in a world that desperately needs their witness. From the first lie whispered in the Garden of Eden, that insidious seed of doubt that sought to separate humanity from God, to the triumphant victory of the empty tomb, the ultimate refutation of falsehood, God's answer to deception is resurrection. He does not merely condemn our lies, He transforms them, redeeming them, turning them into instruments of grace. He invites us to rise, to emerge from the shadows of falsehood, to embrace the light of His truth. Like the child planting a tree with an elder, we are called to participate in the work of restoration, to plant seeds of truth that will grow into a vibrant canopy of justice and compassion. We are called to nurture the saplings of hope, to cultivate a culture where honesty and integrity flourish. The camera pans to a forest, a tapestry of life, a testament to the enduring power of creation, a symbol of the transformative power of truth. We are called to be part of this living testament, to bear witness to the light that no darkness can extinguish. We are called to rise, in word, deed, and heart, to embody the truth of Christ's love, to build communities where justice and compassion prevail, where the wounds of the past are healed, and where the light of God's grace illuminates the path toward a future of peace and reconciliation. Final text overlay: you will know the truth, and the truth will set you free. John 8:32. Let us then embrace this sacred calling, this profound responsibility to be witnesses to the truth of Christ, to allow His light to shine through us, to transform our lives, and our communities. Let us remember that the truth, though sometimes painful, is always liberating, always healing, always redemptive. And let us trust that in the end, the light of truth will always prevail, for it is the light of God's love, and that love is eternal. Call to action?
Thank you for accompanying us on this profound exploration of the sacred architecture of truth. If this journey into the depths of the ninth commandment and its implications for our lives has stirred within you a desire for greater honesty and integrity, we invite you to join the Hope in God community. Subscribe for more theological reflections that illuminate the timeless wisdom of Scripture and its relevance to our modern world. Share your own experiences of encountering truth and grace in the midst of a world often clouded by deception. Let us continue together, building communities of authenticity and compassion, and finding hope in every step of our shared pilgrimage towards a deeper understanding of Christ, the Word made flesh, who is truth itself.